All right, then. Good morning, everyone. This is Arthur Joannick here at Delta. I'm joined with by my colleagues John Slow.
Good morning.
And Mathieu Carola.
Good morning.
We are here today to talk about the latest study that the Connectee service team at Delta has published, which is called the annual state of the market in Europe for Connectee energy. This is the second version of the report we have done. The first one was back in 2014 last year. And we will update this report every year to give an overview of how the market develops year after year, how our forecast look like next to the current state of the market. We will try to limit this webinar to 45 minutes, and in this time we will allow you to ask questions. So as you can see on the software, you have functionalities like questions or chats where you can write down some of the questions you might have. And you can also ask us to unmute you so that you can directly ask questions through the webinar. If we don't have time to answer the question, we will get back to you by email later. And again, if you want to ask questions after the webinar, if you want to get the slide set or anything else, get in touch with us. Feel free to call or email us. You have our details here on the slide. So to give you a bit of introduction to the Connectee service team who worked on this report. So there is myself, Arthur Joannick, who's senior analyst at Delta. I developed and managed the service for about 2 years now. And I work on the service and also on most of the consulting work we do in the Connectee area.
My name's John Slow. I'm a director here at Delta. So I work with Arthur on the Connected Home service and on many other aspects of our distributed energy and energy services research.
All right. I'm Matti Kahalo. I'm an analyst at Delta working for this Connected Home service. I support Arthur with a lot of the research and industry contacts and that kind of stuff, supporting the Connected Home service.
And we have Sue Furnell, who is not on the call yet. She might be joining later. Sue is an associate at Delta, helping us with the Connectee service. She has more than 25 years experience in strategy in telecom and utility companies. She has been working for Power and British Gas, for example. And she provides a good help on to understand the strategies and the business models of different companies in this space. So the agenda for today's webinar will be a bit of introduction about Deltaee and the Connectee service. Of course, most of you know about us, but it's always good to refresh on this. We will give a brief introduction to the study, how we went about it, the methodology, the different parts of the study, and then we will share lots of highlights from the research from the European state of the market. And this will be divided in 3 parts, one being the different sales channels. The second will be the types of products, so smart thermostats, smart room controls, smart plugs, etc. And finally, the key markets in Europe, which are the most interesting today, are the ones that are looking promising. And finally, we will summarize everything and share with you some details to contact us if you need anything in the future.
So very quick bit of background about Delta Energy and Environment. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, it might help you understand where we're coming from. We're a specialized research and consulting company, and our mission is to help companies navigate the transition to a more distributed, service-orientated, customer-centric energy future. We do that through a range of different subscription services and consultancy projects on the topics you can see on the left-hand side of this slide. So working very much at and towards the customer end of the value chain. And our clients comprise mainly of the big European energy companies, well, big and small European energy companies, product manufacturers, controls companies, increasingly a number of companies from other sectors such as telecoms or insurance, and occasional work for policymakers and investors. So if you're interested in some of our other research services or these topics on this slide, then please do visit our website or get in touch and we can provide you with some more details.
In terms of the Connected Home service itself, so today we have around 20 companies subscribing to the service with a mixture of the types of clients John just talked about. What the service provides is really helping you being successful with the Connected Home space, developing the right strategies for your business. It gives you unlimited user access within the company. It's not only report-based, but also relationship-based, where we really interact with every subscribers. You have an access to our private roundtable that we are hosting in March in Amsterdam. Access to our database and distill news about the market. So really understanding what's happening today in the market and what it means for your business. In terms of the different reports we published in the past, so here are some examples where we called product reviews, where we looked at around 50 products in the market and analyzed each of them. We looked at business models, so how to generate money from Connected Home. We listed around 20 different values that we found interesting and analyzed the best ones.
And this topic continues to be a key topic for our subscribers and other work we do. And I must say, if you're finding this area hard in terms of identifying the right business model or way to create value, then you're not alone. It's a really interesting and very key topic that a lot of people are looking at.
Next one being the what we call the Connected Home infrastructure, which looked at the different platforms, the war between the protocols, between the Google, Apple, Samsung, big technology companies. And again, this is a topic that evolves constantly. So we'll try to refresh this or to speak individually to subscribers about it. We are every year doing 8 or more country reports in Europe with the current state of the actual market and our scenarios and how it might change in the next few years. We did it for the key European countries and are currently in the process of updating this. Recently, we published a study on online customer survey where we interviewed more than 1,000 customers in Europe online, and we asked questions like how appealing are different Connected Home energy products, how much they're willing to pay for it, which suppliers are the favorite one for the customers.
So we found a lot of really interesting insights in terms of how customers are actually thinking about connected home products, about services, about the different appeal of different types of products and services, and about who they'd be interested in buying these products and services from and at what prices.
And all of this, of course, feeds into our future studies, for example, the future market and scenario that we are developing. It's always interesting to understand customers, policy, products, business models to really have a good view on how this is developing. So we are at the stage of this current report, the second annual State of the European Market, which we will talk about in this webinar. And finally, the reports we are working on at the moment as we speak, one being the wider Connected Home market. So not only talking about energy, but what are the global trends in the Connected Home space, from insurance company, from wearables, from security and peace of mind, etc. And we're also working on a piece of work called Heating Appliance and Connectivity, really looking at how to connect different heating appliances depending on different use cases. So we look at different protocols, open, closed, within the heating and energy industry, and how this relates to your business. And of course, finally, this is a subscription model based on subscriber relationships. So we always ask our subscribers what kind of topics they're interested in, and we try to find out the topic that everyone will benefit from.
So we're very pleased in this webinar to give you some highlights of our work on the State of the Market report, and hopefully that will be interesting and valuable for you. And of course, if you want to know more about our research, you can get in touch with us afterwards.
And you also have webinars available on YouTube from the previous topics here in blue. So feel free to browse our website and you will find these webinars, or to email us afterwards, and I will share that with you. So now talking about the state of the market itself. Here is how we thought about this market before we really started to write about it. We really thought that there are 3 key things driving the market, one being the different kinds of players and all the drivers behind them. So by players, we mean the energy suppliers, the heating appliance manufacturers, the control, the startups, and also, for example, the telecoms or the big technology companies. So how does each of these companies think about this market? What are they doing? And what do they want to achieve from that? Secondly is what's really happening on the customer side. So if you're a customer today in Europe, what's available to you? What kind of product, for what kind of price? What problems does it solve for you? And etc. And finally, this is a very scattered market in Europe, and each country has different drivers, different specificities in the energy or the heating market. And therefore, we detail all the drivers for each of the countries in the market. So that gives a good overview of how the European market is, but market by market. So this is the table of content we use for the actual report, which illustrates again these three angles to look at the state of the market today, from the key sales channels, second the types of products in the market, and finally the individual country analysis, where we provided an analysis on Germany, UK, Netherlands, France, the Nordic countries, and the rest of Europe. And what we see is the more we look at Europe every year, the more we see that countries are actually specifically developing in their own way. So starting with some highlights from the report now, talking about the key sales channels, what we really saw is every type of company has different type of strategy, but there are common themes across all the types of companies. One being the successful companies have actually committed strategies where the executive has committed to invest money to put connectivity at the heart of their business. And therefore, this results in high investments. For example, British Gas recently announced that they are investing £500 million in Connectee Home in the next 5 years. So lots of companies are spending money, and therefore this is driving the market.
And Arthur, do you see how many companies do you see really committing to the connected home, or how many energy companies? Is it a handful, or is it most of them in Europe?
That's actually a good question. The commitment can always vary from one company to another. There are probably three big energy companies today committing in Europe. So British Gas, as I just mentioned, Ineco, who recently acquired QB and who is really trying to push for its platform across Europe, and RWE, who has been in the market for about 5-6 years now and really trying to develop, again, a platform of product and devices that are really interesting for the customer. And there are a number of followers behind that which are starting to get committed, but it's not with the same level of commitment as these companies. Another key common theme is that getting to mass market quickly for this company is really the key. So it's not about selling devices, it's not about making a few euros margin on each product, it's really getting in the house to be the Trojan horse and then offer added value services. Another key point is that actually companies like British Gas, who are active in the UK, a bit in the US, are actually trying now to expand to other countries in Europe. So it's not only about defending your market, reducing churn, etc. It's really about attacking other markets and making a lot of value from Connectee Home. And finally, as I explained, there is a common idea of the biggest price at the end when you are at the center of the connected home. So the smart thermostat could be a way to get into the house, but there are other ways that we can explain, like I don't know, the smart TV, smart plugs. There are many other ways that companies are trying to find out to get at the center of the house. So in terms of energy companies, what are they driven by today? It's mostly customer retention in some of the countries where churn rates are relatively high. They are driven by reaching out to new markets. They know that their retail business is in danger, so they could become service providers and therefore go to other European countries or other countries worldwide.
And we see some companies taking quite conscious decisions to try and evolve their business away from a commodity business where they're just selling units of energy to a much more service-orientated business where they have deeper relationships with customers, sell a range of services to customers. And if you look at Eneco, that's certainly very clearly their strategy.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's really about offering added value services around energy so that they can monetize Connectee Home in the future. Heating equipment manufacturers are also another kind of very interesting company. So there are 8 million boilers installed every year in Europe today, and there's a big battle between the key players. And the thing is, when you start the year, to sell boilers, you don't start with any sales, so you really have to fight hard every year to make yourself better in the eyes of customer, to differentiate yourself. And your customers are not only end users but also installers, which means you have to create added value services for both the installer and the customer, which is why we start to see more maintenance services through remote diagnostics, which could really benefit to both the end user and the installer. And there is also the fact that there are lots of boiler covers or maintenance contracts that are going on, which are really profitable for these companies because it's ongoing revenue, and they are really trying to push hard to develop this business model forward.
So there's the heating market. It's a very traditional market. The manufacturers are often very distanced from their customers. There's a long value chain. Heating controls are very much 20th century, not 21st century. So there's a lot of potential for innovation and disruption in this market. And a company like Bosch, which of course is much more than just Europe's #1 heating manufacturer, Bosch has embraced Internet of Things across its whole business and is starting to push quite hard in this area.
And they are even developing their own internal company to link all the smart home activities, which will help them really focus on this connectivity rather than putting a bit of connectivity in each part of their business. So it will be interesting to see from 2016 how this develops for Bosch. Finally, the telecom companies. So today they are not really active in the market. They are just developing strategies that could enable really quick sales and quick volumes in the European market. So Deutsche Telekom, for example, is a good example of that, where they are really trying to embed connectivity within the internet router, which means that everyone is renting an internet router, so this white box. But if this box could be connected already, there will be a lot of cost savings for the end user, for example, to buy a smart thermostat or room controls or anything else that would require a gateway.
So the telecoms companies in Europe are, as Arthur said, are trying to get into this market, mainly with quite small steps. But if you look across to North America, companies like Comcast moved from telecoms and broadband to offering security services using connected homes, then moved from security services to including smart thermostats, and are now including energy retail as well. So this has some potential, we think, in Europe, even if it's a few years behind developments in North America.
Exactly, and Comcast has already 500,000 customers in the US, so it's a more advanced type of scale. But each of these 500,000 customers can have a smart thermostat for much cheaper and as a whole connected home offering rather than just a single product. So in terms of developments in the market, so as I explained before, we track the market year by year, and we can see today that the energy suppliers are responsible for more than half of the sales today. This is mainly led by companies like British Gas, Eneco, and RWE. But other energy suppliers are really starting to push for the markets in each of the countries where there is a competitive energy supply market.
And Arthur, these sales numbers, could you explain whether these are sales of individual devices like a single TRV or sales to households? So what are we showing on the y-axis?
So we show the number of houses equipped with a connected home system in the last 12 months. So this can be a smart thermostat. This can be a set of connected valve controls with a gateway. We will count that as one unit. This could be a set of smart plugs, of smart lighting, etc. So we don't detail exactly the numbers of devices that each customer buys, but the number of houses actually equipped with that. And the other half of the market is a mixture between heating appliance manufacturers like Bosch and Vaillant, for example, starting to sell smart thermostats alongside the connected boilers. Heating control manufacturers, connected home specialists, startups, installers actually selling products directly. Installation companies like HomeServe in the UK are starting to really push for that because they have a big boiler servicing business, and this could really help optimize the efficiency of their business. Retailers are one of the most interesting ones today, because today the customers buying Connectome products are the early adopters, and therefore they don't need to be sold products. They just go to their local DIY shop and browse for products and select the one they prefer. But we don't necessarily believe that this channel will be the most successful one in the future, because there's very few ways to discount products from this route, while energy suppliers or boiler manufacturers could actually discount the products more heavily and therefore make it more attractive to customers.
And they can discount it because they can create value in other ways for their business. So effectively cross-subsidizing some of these products to extract value in other parts of their business.
Yeah, so Telecom could be a really good example of this. If Telecoms will be moving towards a kind of fifth play, selling phone, broadband, but also security and energy, then they could really make customers stickier and allow to offer it for a lower price. Okay, now just talking very quickly in terms of the types of products that have been successful in the market. Unsurprisingly, I will say smart thermostats come on top, with products like the Hive from British Gas and QB and the Tune from QB and Ineco. Both have been selling at more than 100,000 units in the last 12 months, which starts to grow some sales. And for Ineco specifically, it starts to be quite interesting because they have about 1.5–2 million customers. So it starts to be a good chunk of their customers. And there are lots of other products that have been sold at lower scale, like the Wave from Bosch, Tado, Netatmo, Nest, and also a lot of others in local markets. And in total, we see that as around 500,600,000 sales in the last 12 months. So it starts to grow to interesting numbers, but still far from mass market. The way we find out these numbers, so it's not rocket science really. Companies like British Gas and Ineco are publishing the numbers, which makes our job easy. And other companies, we have a very good network between ourselves, talking to all the utilities, the manufacturers, etc. And we have a really good view on roughly how many devices they are selling every year.
So we can build really good pictures of the market in terms of who is at what scale of sales and who are the leaders who have got only a small number of thousands of sales, who have got maybe 10 or 20,000 sales a year.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we prefer is not to give sales number, but to really give a picture of the market. And doing it that way is really helpful to understand what's behind these sales and why are they successful, why they are not. Company like Nest, for example, had really high targets for the European market and hasn't been able to deliver as successfully as in the US for now, which is why they actually launched their third generation of the thermostat with open term capabilities, with the possibility to control the hot water, with a different display to make it even more attractive. So companies like that are adapting to the European market, but it's still difficult to be successful in every country because the heating markets are very different from one market to another, and adapting the product to every kind of boiler is very difficult and challenging. And the other kind of product that has been successful is also around heat, actually. It's what we call the multi-room controls that are connected. And it's often in a TRV, actually. So it's what you can put on a radiator and replace the radiator valve. So EQ3 is a smaller player in the control business, but is actually the leading one in the multi-room control in the connected home. They are selling only in Germany for now, but are really trying to expand in Europe. And the difference between EQ3 and the likes of Honeywell and Danfoss, who are quite strong in the control business, is the current price. So for the customers, it's much cheaper to buy multi-room controls from EQ3. And the problem is when you install multi-room controls on this, you need to replace your radiator valves in every room on every radiator, which takes sometimes an installer to come to replace the valve, to clean the radiator. So it can take up to half a day or a day of time to actually do this. So that it adds a lot of cost. And therefore, it's difficult for traditional players to reduce the cost and the margin, because they also have to go through their whole sales, the whole route to market. So through the vendor, the installer, and finally the end user, who are all taking a little bit of the margins.
We do see customers, though, are really interested in this product. So when we do research with customers, this scores very highly in terms of the appeal and interest. And we see a lot of companies looking at this space, which we expect to be quite exciting in the next 1 or 2 years, with more products coming to market, more offerings, more different types of propositions packaged in different ways for customers. So we'll be watching this space very carefully. We have our views as to what could unlock this market. I think it's only just beginning today in Germany, and elsewhere it's very sales are very low at the moment, but we think it could go very quickly in the next years.
And as John explained, there are all the successful startups like Telecom or Plugwise have announced already that they want to develop connected TRVs and connected room controls. So this is a business that everyone is going into, and that will be interesting to follow the dynamics of it. Finally, other types of products in the connected home energy space that haven't reached such scale as the smart heating controls, but remote diagnostics, as we explained, could be interesting for both the installer and the heating appliance manufacturer, where the installer or the maintenance engineer is able to monitor remotely what's happening in the boiler and to anticipate any breakdown or to come to the house with the right parts to replace for the boiler, and therefore save a lot of cost on the operational efficiency. We see a lot of actions happening in the home energy management area. So you can see on top right of the slide, which is linking different energy aspects of the house, like heating, lighting, energy consumption, energy generation, energy storage, electric vehicles together. Today, we are a bit far from a full home energy management system that would work properly, but there are lots of companies, especially the EE-Bus initiative, working on specific use cases that will link, for example, the washing machine and the PV generation, so that the consumption is optimized, so that the customer pays or buys the electricity as less as possible from the grid. So only a few use cases today are being developed in Europe, but over time, this is the picture that's developing. And finally, the other types of products at the bottom of the slide, smart plugs, really interesting to really monitor the consumption and to give some sort of control of your appliances. Smart lighting, which is still very expensive. I think the Philips Hue system is about 200 euros today for only 3 light bulbs, but customers are not disinterested from that. It's just a bit expensive to grow volumes today. And finally, what we call sub-metering system. So in countries where there is no smart meter or the smart meter rollout is delayed, like here in the UK, companies are putting a small sensor on the actual meter and monitoring how the meter evolves every hour or every day. And this gives a bit of insight to the customer on how much he consumes. Okay, now talking about some of the key markets that have been successful in Europe, I will hand this over to Matti.
All right. So here you can see the map of Europe, and as you can see from the highlighted colors, the top markets at the moment are Germany, UK, and the Netherlands, with Germany already reaching 500,000 in sales and UK being around 300,000. What is clear to be seen from these markets that they're driven by a few committed players with really key partnerships. In the UK, it's been British Gas with their high product that are pushing the market forward. In Germany, RWE has been really active in this space with their EQ3 products, as Arthur already mentioned. And in Netherlands, it's Eneco with QB and Toon. So these markets have been really spearheaded by these partnerships, and therefore have seen faster growth than elsewhere in Europe.
And really the key thing to understand is a committed player can actually start to bring more interest from other players in the market. So while Eneco, for example, is very committed in the Netherlands, and the other energy suppliers are actually trying to enter the market just as a Me Too play. So Essent, for example, started to have interesting numbers 1 or 2 years ago with the ICY thermostat, and is now offering the Nest. So really showing that the strategy is evolving year after year, and that a committed player or a few committed players are actually good news for the market to create a dynamic.
And then when we go through the main drivers in Europe, here you can see an example of UK and France. Here we can see highlighted what we think are the most important of the drivers. And so going through the drivers, we can see that in the UK, the key drivers have been the level of competition between energy suppliers. So the competition is really tight, and that there's a demand for customer attention, and this is why companies in the utilities have been really interested in smart home connected home products. And there's large committed players. There's a large annual install base for boilers, and the quality of the current heating control market is really low. So there's a lot of room for improvement. And on the other hand, when looking at France, the picture is quite different. And there, these drivers are much weaker, which has resulted in much lower growth in France. And with things like policy incentives being more important, with subsidizing smart thermostat products, for instance.
Yeah, one thing to understand in terms of quality of the current heating control market is that in the UK, for example, it's very common to have a kind of timer where you tick every quarter of an hour to just say turn on or off the heating every quarter of an hour. So that's what people have in most of their flats today in the UK, and therefore adding a smart thermostat or anything better than this is really helping improve the consumption and therefore reduce the energy bills. While in countries like France or in countries specifically like Germany, it's very hard to actually improve the current heating controls because they are a bit more advanced than what you can find in the UK. And yeah, so here on this slide we compared two countries like the UK and France, and you can see a lot of green dots in the UK and none or a few in France. We did this comparison for most of the European countries, and that's actually quite interesting to see that in the four first drivers, the UK, Germany, and Netherlands come first, and as a result, the market is actually growing quite rapidly in these markets, while the others have still to find other ways to drive the connected home market. For France, for example, the problem is the two main energy suppliers, EDF and ENGIE, almost have a monopoly of customers. So EDF has most of the electricity customers, ENGIE has most of the gas customers, and there is no key thing driving them to keep customers or to acquire customers because nothing is really moving.
And then when we look at the sales in these countries, as we mentioned earlier, in the UK they've reached around 300,000 sales per year, and most of these sales in the UK have come from smart thermostats, as Arthur mentioned, largely due to the really simple controls that they are in the UK. But when looking at Germany, the picture is quite different, with 500,000 sales. But most of these come from the multi-zonal TRVs or room thermostat systems. Those have the lion's share of the market, with some interest in systems like solar PV optimization, with some policy incentives now for more self-consumption.
And what's really interesting to see in Germany is that we showed some logos of companies like Bosch, RW, and Deutsche Telekom. Those are the companies that show more commitment in Germany, and having different companies being really committed in the market really helps drive the market forward. So we said previously that EQ3 is selling a lot of TRVs, for example, in Germany. But it's one of the reasons why they are successful is because they go through different sales channels. They go through the likes of RWE, through the utility. They also are on the Kivicon platform from Deutsche Telekom. Bosch is now using the EQ3 TRVs, and EQ3 is even going through DIY retailers and through installers. So having multiple sales channels is also very, very important to reach out the market. And these companies have been doing well, while in other countries it's often limited to one or very few sales channels.
And as you saw on one of the earlier slides, there are very diverse sales channels to this market. A lot of people are experimenting with different channels. There's a lot of competition between the channels, and that's one of the most important dynamics we see as to who will be best placed to have a bigger share of that route to market as possible in the future.
And there is another interesting trend that we will develop in the future reports about the global trends of the connected home is the integrating apps like IFTTT and other new players. These apps are really trying to be some kind of retail shop for different kinds of products, where, for example, customer has different connected home devices in the house, for example, a smart thermostat, a door lock, a smoke alarm system. And these integrating apps will tell the customer, well, if you buy another product like, I don't know, a camera, then you will have a use case where everything works together through our app. And therefore, you can see that there are new sales channels, new routes to market that could be developed and go forward. But however, today this is not the key things driving the market, but in the future this might be one of them.
And finally, in the Netherlands, the picture looks quite similar to the UK in terms that it's driven. There's one key player that's really driving the market forward, and it's mostly smart thermostats the sales come from. But it's interesting to note that actually Netherlands has the highest penetration when looking at the size of the market in the whole connected home space.
And one of the reasons to that, apart from the commitment from Eneco, is that somehow the Open Term Association has done a really good job in the Netherlands, where most of the boilers are equipped with the Open Term capability, which means that any smart control that is coming with Open Term can actually do a little bit more than just on and off on the boilers, and therefore the boilers that are modulating are controlled relatively smartly from this smart thermostats. And a company like Nest, again, who was in the Netherlands in the last year or two, wasn't able to offer this open term capability, and therefore most of the boilers were losing a bit of efficiency because of the on-off controls that you had. And now that they are bringing the open term protocol to the market, then it's possible that they will increase their sales and they will be able to control more efficiently the boilers, which in a way will be more interesting for the customers, but also from the industry itself. There are lots of reviews being published about which product is best, which is the most efficient, the nicest design, the price, etc. But if you get bad publicity from this sort of reviews, like Nest has seen in the past, you won't be able to convince installers and customers. So it's really interesting to develop the right product for the right market in order to be able to grow your sales.
Arthur, we've got one question just come in. How do we see the markets developing? So we've got here the historic sales, and what forecasts what's our view of how the market will develop in the future?
Well, it's a very good question that we try to answer country by country. I think the general view is that the market will keep increasing as companies are investing more and more in the market. So, for example, in the UK, where British Gas is investing £500 million in development, in R&D, but also in marketing and understanding the customer better, that will help really drive the market forward. But there are also other types of platforms of product that are being developed. Yesterday, I was in the Tube in London, and you could see an advertising for a company called Canary, which is developing a smart video camera. So everyone is starting to see these products now, and the awareness is raising. We also expect the prices to go down as companies now are realizing that customers are not willing to pay that much for that. So in the previous study we did, less than 10% of customers in Europe will be willing to pay for current prices. And therefore, companies now have to think about ways, and some are starting to do this, to discount this product, to hide the cost somehow. Eneco, for example, is offering the tune for free with an ongoing cost against an energy contract. So that's one example where companies could subsidize products. Boiler manufacturers are trying to sell or to bundle a smart thermostat with a boiler today, and therefore this could also raise the sales, as with 8 million boilers installed per year in Europe, this could really grow very quickly. So there are lots of ways the market could grow, and we really believe that it will. And our next study will show exactly how country by country the market will grow.
Thanks very much, Arthur. So we've got a few minutes left, maybe just to wrap up the key messages and conclusion from the webinar.
Okay.
So
just to summarize very, very quickly what we talked about today. Last year, in the last 12 months, more than 1.3 million houses were equipped with connected home energy devices in Europe, and that was from 500,000 in 2014. So the market is really growing fast today, but still very far from mass market. On the left-hand side, you can see the share between smart thermostats, smart room controls, and the other types of products. So smart heating is really dominating the market today, and led by companies like Hive, Ineco, and EQ3. But other niche products are really being quite talked about and quite being developed now. So it could see some growth in the next few years. And the shares by country. So Germany is dominating the current European market, with the UK following. Netherlands not being far, but a lot of different countries seeing lots of drivers are actually growing as well, and are probably a few years behind. But the overall size of the pie is growing today, and will keep growing in the next few years for sure.
So in our view, we're at the start of a really exciting few years where we expect this market to grow very strongly in some different ways in different countries, and that will keep us busy for the foreseeable future on the research we're doing under the service.
Exactly. So we have a final question coming. Do we think that connected home services will develop, especially specifically around heat? I think the answer is yes. There are lots of ways that that services around heat could be developed. If you look at a company called Thermondo in Germany, it's a startup trying to sell, or not to sell boilers, but to give it for free and for the customers to rent it. If you add connectivity to this, it's really a way to actually see heat as a service rather than just buying a boiler for very expensive and have it for the next 10, 20 years. We talked about remote diagnostics as well. This could be a way for both the installer and the boiler manufacturers to improve the quality of the heat servicing, as well as optimizing the heat, optimizing the heating maintenance. There are also companies working on sensors in the house that will help better understand the thermal efficiency of the house, and this could help upsell, for example, insulation work or double glazing windows, etc. And this could provide a lot of values to companies like energy suppliers or large installation companies.
So we see lots of potential for connected home services around heat. We also see lots of potential for services around security, and a report we're just about to publish looks at a number of non-energy verticals and developments we see in the market in security, in peace of mind, and in other sectors, and how companies like insurance companies can create value from that. So maybe that's a nice way to wrap it together as we come to the end of our time. A really fascinating market. It certainly keeps us busy in the connected home service. I hope that you've enjoyed the webinar and found it interesting and learnt some new perspectives. Of course, would be delighted to talk with you about the full connected home service, and if you're interested in subscribing or finding out more about our research, you've got a taster of it today, and would be delighted to tell you more about the full range of services that we provide on connected home and on other topics around distributed energy, heat and services as well.
And finally, as I explained at the beginning of the webinar, we are organizing a private roundtable on the 2nd of March in Amsterdam, where we will group around 50 of the key players of the connected home and energy market. If you are interested in attending this event, please feel free to contact us, and we will be delighted to include you in the list of invited people. So thank you very much today for your attention. As John explained, that's a really exciting market to talk about and to follow. So we will be doing more webinars about the market in the coming months. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any more questions, if you'd like the set of slides, feel free to email us, call us, or get in touch with us anyway.
Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.